What happens when the woman you once planned to marry walks away, only for her close friend to suddenly be at your bedside, tearful, comforting, and setting off a storm of whispers? In this story, nothing is as simple as it seems. And real quick, if you like getting the unfiltered side of hip-hop drama, make sure you hit subscribe. You won't want to miss what's next. For over a decade, Tracey Edmonds and Deion Sanders were one of those couples people assumed would go the distance. Tracy wasn't just a familiar name in Hollywood. She was a powerhouse producer, businesswoman, and former television executive who had built an empire behind the scenes. Deion, of course, was primetime himself, NFL Hall of Famer, charismatic sports analyst, and a man whose larger-than-life personality drew attention everywhere he went. Together, they were a blend of Hollywood polish and sports world swagger, and their engagement had fans convinced a wedding was inevitable. But in late 2023, the fairy tale took a sharp turn. Out of nowhere, Tracy announced on social media that she and Deion had decided to part ways. What stood out most was the way she framed it, not as a messy split or a scandal, but as her own decision to move on. She made it clear she was in control of the narrative, telling fans it was time for her to step into a new chapter of her life. There was no public finger-pointing, no cryptic posts dripping with shade, just a confident, almost serene statement that suggested she had already made peace with the choice. Still, for those who had followed their journey, the timing felt curious. Deion was facing serious health challenges, undergoing multiple surgeries and taking extended time away from the sidelines. Some wondered why Tracy would walk away during such a vulnerable moment. But to Tracy, this was about self-preservation. She was making a clean break, not lingering in a relationship that no longer felt aligned with her future. She wished him well, and that was supposed to be the end of the story. Of course, as we're about to see, the end was only the beginning. Not long after the breakup, the conversation around Deion Sanders took a surprising turn. In the faith-based documentary For Your Glory, cameras captured raw, intimate moments from his ongoing battle with a serious illness. Moments that weren't just about surgeries, treatments, or his personal resilience. They also showed who was there by his side. And that's where things got interesting. Viewers immediately noticed a familiar face in the hospital room. Actress and model Karrueche Tran. She wasn't in the background, blending into the crowd. She was right there next to Deion, leaning in, holding his hand, and visibly emotional as he spoke about his journey. Her presence wasn't fleeting either. It was enough to make audiences pause, rewind, and wonder what exactly her role was in this deeply personal chapter of his life. According to reports from Atlanta Black Star and Soap Central, Carucci's involvement wasn't just a random act of kindness. This wasn't a quick visit arranged through a mutual friend. She appeared to be a steady figure in his recovery environment, someone trusted enough to be allowed into the room during vulnerable moments. For fans who remembered her connection to Tracey Edmonds, the very woman who had only recently ended her engagement to Deion, the visual was jarring. And that's when the question started. Why was Carucci there? How close were she and Deion really? And perhaps the most uncomfortable question of all, did Tracy know her friend was playing such a central role during this time? But the real surprise? Carucci wasn't just there. She was central to the moment. The moment For Your Glory began streaming. Social media lit up. Clips of Carucci at Deion's bedside were reposted on Instagram, dissected on X, and debated in comment sections across the internet. Some people framed it as a beautiful show of support during a difficult time. Others, though, weren't so charitable, pointing out that Carucci wasn't just anyone. She had history with Tracey Edmonds, and that history suddenly looked a lot more complicated. Adding fuel to the fire were whispers that this wasn't the first time the two had been spotted together in recent months. Atlanta Black Star reported on paparazzi photos from Los Angeles showing Deion and Carucci walking side by side, their fingers intertwined in a moment that felt far more intimate than a casual friendship. The images didn't look staged. They looked like two people comfortable in each other's presence, moving through the world without trying too hard to hide. Then came the blog circuit. Sites like Sandra Rose picked up the story, framing it less like a chance encounter and more like the unveiling of a new Hollywood pairing. Fans started drawing timelines, matching up public sightings with the tail end of Deion and Tracey's relationship. and the math wasn't flattering. To some, it looked like an overlap. To others, it looked like Carucci had quietly stepped into a role that was once Tracy's, before Tracy had even fully walked out the door. Whether it was coincidence, compassion, or something more, the optics were undeniable. A woman once welcomed into Tracy's circle was now making headlines alongside her former fiancé. And for the internet, that was all it took to turn suspicion into speculation. The internet went into overdrive, but things were already stirring behind the scenes. Behind the curated Instagram posts and polished press statements, there was a private conversation that would later become the centerpiece of the whole controversy. According to Atlanta Black Star, Hot New Hip Hop, and the Jasmine brand, Tracey Edmonds didn't let the rumors swirl without seeking clarity. She went straight to the source. The way Claudia Jordan tells it on her podcast, Tracy reached out to Carucci directly, not through a manager, not through publicists, but woman to woman. She wanted to know if the whispers had any truth to them. Was Carucci actually dating Deion Sanders? It was the kind of uncomfortable question that can end a friendship in a heartbeat, but Tracy asked it anyway. Carucci's response was quick, and in hindsight, maybe a little too easy. She reportedly laughed, brushed off the suggestion, and told Tracy there was nothing romantic going on. The laughter, Claudia implied, wasn't just lighthearted. It carried a tone that seemed to dismiss the idea entirely, as if the rumors were so absurd they weren't worth taking seriously. Tracy accepted the answer, at least on the surface, and that was supposed to be the end of it. But then the footage from For Your Glory came out. Then came the LA sightings. Then came the holding hands photos. Suddenly, that laugh didn't feel so harmless. To some, it looked like a dodge. To others, it looked like Carucci had flat out misled her former friend. And that's the part that made this more than just celebrity gossip. It made it personal. So, was it a lie or just bad timing? If there's one thing Claudia Jordan is known for, it's saying what others tiptoe around. When the rumors about Carucci and Deion started snowballing, Claudia didn't just hint at her opinion. She put it on the record. Speaking on her podcast, as reported by Rolling Out and the Jasmine brand, she made it clear that this wasn't just messy. It was a textbook example of why people need to have what she called uncomfortable conversations. Claudia's stance was simple. If someone you once considered a friend is now romantically linked to your ex, especially when that relationship might have roots that trace back to your time together, you owe it to each other to talk about it openly. In her eyes, avoiding the conversation only makes it worse. Handle it head on, she urged. Don't laugh it off. Don't pretend it's nothing. Be real about what's going on. But her commentary didn't stop there. Claudia went further, saying that based on what she'd heard, Carucci didn't just dodge Tracy's question, she misled her. The idea that someone would deny a romance while still spending intimate time with that person, Claudia argued, crosses a line. To her, it wasn't just about who was dating whom. It was about trust, transparency, and the unspoken rules that keep friendships intact. The remark that resonated most was Claudia's subtle but pointed reminder. Once you start building a relationship with someone's ex, you're not just dealing with romance. You're dealing with the wreckage it might leave behind in friendships, reputations, and public perception. It raises the question, how do you navigate the line between friendship, loyalty, and romance? If this situation already sounded like the plot of a reality show, the backstory makes it even more uncanny. According to Media Takeout and Soap Central, the connection between Karrueche Tran and Deion Sanders didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was Tracey Edmonds who brought them together in the first place. Back in 2021, Tracy and Deion were still very much engaged and working side by side on various media ventures. One of those projects introduced Carucci into their circle. It wasn't just a passing introduction. It was the kind of creative collaboration that meant shared dinners, mutual respect, and a certain level of trust. Carucci was part of the professional orbit that Tracy had curated, a circle she believed was loyal both to her and to her relationship. That's why the later headlines hit so differently. The woman sitting by Deion's hospital bed in For Your Glory wasn't a stranger. She was someone who had once been warmly welcomed into Tracy's inner world. The same woman Tracy had trusted enough to connect with her fiancé was now making public appearances with him in a way that looked a lot more personal than professional. The optics, messy. The timing, suspicious. and the irony, almost theatrical. It's the kind of twist that would feel over the top in a scripted drama. But here it was playing out in real life, with real emotions and reputations on the line. At this point, everyone's wondering what really happened. If there was one person who could have shut down all the rumors in a single sentence, it was Deion Sanders. But when the moment came, he did the exact opposite. During a podcast appearance, as reported by Atlanta Black Star, SandraRose.com, and Soap Central, the host finally asked the question everyone else had been dancing around. Was there something romantic going on between him and Karrueche Tran? The reaction was almost cinematic. Instead of answering, Deion leaned into a bit of comedic theater, pretending his connection was breaking up. Mid-question, he started talking about technical issues, his voice fading in and out, buying just enough time to avoid giving a real response. And then, the conversation simply moved on. To some listeners, it was just prime time being playful, dodging the gossip with humor. But to others, it was telling. If there was truly nothing there, why not just say so? Why not give the direct, "No, we're not dating" answer that would have ended the speculation on the spot? Deion's silence, or strategic non-answer, ended up saying more than any confirmation could have. In the court of public opinion, avoiding the question often looks like an answer in itself, and in this case, it kept the rumor mill spinning at full speed. Sometimes, silence speaks louder than words. When you step back and look at the full picture, it's almost dizzying. An ex-fiancé who chose to walk away on her own terms. A friend who once moved comfortably through that inner circle. A man navigating both public health battles and private relationship changes. Somewhere along the way, those roles, ex, friend, caregiver, began to blur until no one could say for sure where one ended and the other began. What started as a clean, mutual breakup evolved into a tangled storyline of emotional support, possible romance, and conflicting accounts. Was Carucci simply offering comfort to someone in need? Or was there a deeper connection brewing beneath the surface long before anyone noticed? Was Deion caught in the middle? Or was he quietly rewriting his own narrative? And for Tracy, did this feel like a betrayal or just an unavoidable twist in a life lived under constant scrutiny? In the end, the truth may be messier than the headlines, and the players may never share every detail. But the questions this story raises about loyalty, timing, and the blurry boundaries between friendship and love will keep people talking long after the initial drama fades. Did Carucci betray the girl code, or did she just step into an unfolding love story? Only time will tell.